Eliza, a young woman in Paris, is driven by a deep sense of purpose. She works for a non-profit organization dedicated to helping the homeless, striving to make the world a better place despite her modest lifestyle. While her work fills her life with meaning, Eliza feels incomplete, unaware that fate has an incredible love story waiting for her. One evening, Eliza is tasked with organizing a fundraising gala at the Ritz Paris. The event is crucial for a cause she believes in, and she's determined to make it a success. The elegant venue, glowing chandeliers, and elite guests create an almost surreal atmosphere. Amidst the guests, one man stands out, Dylan Fairchild, a wealthy and reclusive millionaire. Known for his philanthropic efforts, Dylan is rarely seen in public, and his personal life is a mystery to most. When Eliza's eyes meet Dylan's across the ballroom, she feels an immediate connection. It's not his wealth or status that catches her attention, but the vulnerability she senses behind his stoic demeanor. Dylan, too, is drawn to Eliza's warmth and kindness, recognizing that she is different from the superficial people around them. As they talk, they connect on a deeper level. Dylan admires Eliza's genuine passion for helping others, while Eliza is intrigued by his quiet humility and generosity. Despite coming from vastly different worlds, their bond is undeniable. But Dylan carries a secret. He has used a wheelchair for years, not because of any physical ailment, but as a shield to protect himself from being exploited. By presenting himself as disabled, he has kept people at arm's length, including potential friends and romantic partners. As Eliza and Dylan grow closer, he realizes that his secret could destroy everything between them. The weight of his deception makes him fear that Eliza might see him differently if she learns the truth. Eventually, Dylan confesses to Eliza, revealing his secret. He explains that the wheelchair is a defense mechanism designed to keep people from exploiting him for his wealth. Eliza is initially hurt and betrayed, but she begins to understand Dylan's fear and vulnerability. Over time, she forgives him, realizing that their relationship is built on more than just appearances. It's built on trust, honesty, and the willingness to face the truth together. Their love story is about overcoming personal demons, embracing imperfections, and learning to trust and forgive. Through their journey, they discover that true love isn't about perfection. It's about accepting each other's flaws and vulnerabilities. Eliza is a woman whose life revolves around selflessness and service. Born and raised in Paris, Eliza never had the luxuries that wealth and fame afford. She always found fulfillment in the simple pleasures of life. Unlike many of her peers who were caught up in the world of materialism and social status, Eliza chose a path that was far from glamorous, yet deeply rewarding. Her heart had always been drawn to the less fortunate, and her purpose in life became clear early on: to make a difference for those who had nothing. Eliza works for a non-profit organization dedicated to helping the homeless, a cause that is close to her heart. Every day, she wakes up knowing that the work she does is changing lives, one person at a time. From organizing food drives to providing shelter for those in need, Eliza's life is a constant rhythm of helping others. Passion for helping the homeless drives her to work long hours, and she never tires of the impact she can make. Eliza's job is not easy, and often the challenges seem insurmountable. But it is precisely these challenges that fuel her determination and resolve. She understands that the work she does is not just about offering physical assistance, but about restoring dignity and hope to those who have lost both. Despite the demands of her job, Eliza manages to live a relatively simple life. She resides in a modest apartment in the heart of Paris, where she can walk the cobbled streets and absorb the culture and history of the city. Her lifestyle is minimalist, but that suits her perfectly. Eliza has no desire for the material wealth that others covet. For her, true wealth lies in the connections she makes with people and the positive changes she can bring about in her community. She finds contentment in small moments, whether it's sitting in a park with a cup of coffee, reading a book in the quiet of her apartment, or simply talking to the people she helps at the organization. One of Eliza's most significant responsibilities at the nonprofit is organizing fundraising events to support the ongoing work of the organization. These events are crucial in ensuring that the homeless have access to food, shelter, and medical care. This year, Eliza has been given the daunting task of organizing a grand charity gala at the Ritz Paris. While the venue itself screams luxury and opulence, Eliza's focus is not on the grandeur of the event. Instead, she's determined to make sure that every dollar raised goes toward improving the lives of the homeless and ensuring that their needs are met. For Eliza, The gala is a means to an end, a way to shine a light on the plight of those without a home and rally the community to take action. She meticulously plans the event. Eliza works tirelessly to make sure that every detail is perfect. She handles everything from selecting the right speakers to coordinating with donors and ensuring that the event will raise as much money as possible. Eliza's dedication to the cause is evident in the way she pours her heart into the gala. For her, it is not just another event. It is an opportunity to make a real difference. As the night approaches, Eliza feels a mix of nervousness and excitement. She knows that this gala could be a turning point for the organization. She also knows that it represents something deeper for her, the chance to make the world a better place, one person at a time. Despite the glittering environment of the Ritz, Eliza remains grounded. Her passion for the cause and her devotion to the people she serves shine through every aspect of the event. This gala, while a symbol of wealth and influence, is ultimately a reflection of Eliza's unyielding commitment to those who need help the most. Through her tireless work, Eliza shows that true heroism isn't about fame or recognition. It's about putting others' needs before your own and doing everything you can to make a positive change in the world. Dylan Fairchild is a man whose name echoes in the world of the wealthy and influential. Self-made millionaire? He is known far and wide for his immense fortune, but what truly sets him apart is his unwavering commitment to philanthropy. The heart that's as generous as his bank account, Dylan has built an empire of charitable foundations, donating millions to causes ranging from education to medical research, and, most importantly, social justice. On the surface, Dylan appears to have it all: wealth, power, influence, and respect. Yet despite his monumental success, he remains an enigma, a man who prefers the quiet comfort of his home to the glittering parties of high society. Dylan has always been a private person. While others revel in the limelight, he avoids it, shying away from public appearances and press interviews. His life is a carefully constructed fortress, one built around a wall of secrecy that no one has managed to breach. Few who have had the privilege of meeting him in person have often remarked on his stoic demeanor, his calm, calculated nature, and the air of mystery that surrounds him. Dylan is rarely seen in public, and those who are fortunate enough to cross paths with him are left with the sense that there is more to this man than meets the eye. His reclusiveness is not born out of a desire for solitude, rather out of fear. Fear that the world might take advantage of him if they knew the truth. Beneath the polished exterior and the well-constructed persona lies a man who has been hurt, who has been betrayed by people he trusted, and who has learned the hard way that the world is often more interested in what you can give them than who you truly are. The wheelchair, the crutches, the artificial sense of weakness, these are all part of Dylan's carefully crafted shield, a way for him to hide from the world, to protect himself from the prying eyes that see only his wealth and not the man behind the money. It is at a charity gala that Dylan's life takes a significant turn, a turning point that neither he nor Eliza, the young woman he meets that night, could ever have predicted. When Dylan first meets Eliza, he is immediately struck by her warmth and sincerity. There is no artifice in her, no hidden agenda or expectation. Eliza is a woman who radiates genuine compassion, a stark contrast to the people Dylan is used to, those who approach him for favors, for donations, for access to his wealth. Dylan has always been suspicious of people's motives, but Eliza is different. She does not want anything from him except for his attention, his presence at the gala, and his support for the cause she believes in. "Thank you for coming, Mr. Fairchild," Eliza says with a warm smile, her voice sincere. "Your presence means more than you could ever know." Dylan looks at her, a little taken aback. He's used to being a silent benefactor, often working behind the scenes and avoiding the spotlight. But Eliza's honesty, her pure devotion to helping others, makes him pause. For the first time in a long while, he feels like someone sees him for who he truly is, not as a symbol of wealth or power, but as a person. "I'm happy to be here," Dylan responds, his voice steady, yet with an underlying warmth he doesn't often let show. "I believe in what you're doing." As they talk, Dylan can't help but feel a growing connection to Eliza, an attraction that goes beyond the surface. It is not just her beauty or her charm that draws him in, but her authenticity. She speaks with passion about the causes she supports, and Dylan finds himself captivated by her sense of purpose. For the first time in a long while, he is not looking at her with the eyes of a man who is always calculating others' intentions. He is looking at her as a man, pure and simple. However, as their conversation continues and their bond deepens, Dylan feels the familiar tension of the secret he has guarded for so long, the truth about his wheelchair. He knows that Eliza is growing fond of him, and he is terrified of what will happen when she finds out that the man she is falling for is not who he appears to be. The wheelchair is not a result of an accident or illness. It is a shield, a barrier between himself and the world. He uses it to keep people at a distance, to ensure that they are not interested in him for the wrong reasons. "Dylan, is everything all right?" Eliza asks, noticing the faraway look in his eyes. "You've been quiet for a while." He takes a deep breath, his mind racing. He has never been one to reveal the truth about himself. But with Eliza, something is different. He knows that if their relationship is to be real, it must be built on honesty, not secrets. "There's something I need to tell you, Eliza," Dylan says, his voice low, a note of vulnerability slipping into his tone. "The truth is, I'm not paralyzed. I've never been. The wheelchair, it's not what it seems. I use it to keep people away, to protect myself. People only see the wealth, the power, but not the man behind it all." Eliza listens, her expression softening as she absorbs his words. She can see the pain in his eyes, the fear of rejection that he has carried with him for so long. In that moment, she understands. It's not the wheelchair that defines Dylan. It's the heart that beats beneath it. A man who is afraid of being loved for the wrong reasons. "Dylan," Eliza says softly, "I don't care about the wheelchair. I care about you, the person who's sitting in it. We all have our reasons for hiding parts of ourselves. But I see you, Dylan, and that's all that matters." In that moment, Dylan feels a weight lifted from his shoulders. He no longer has to hide, no longer has to be someone he's not. And as Eliza smiles at him, he realizes that for the first time in years, he is seen for who he truly is. Not the man in the wheelchair, but the man with a heart full of love and fear, hope and vulnerability. The grand ballroom of the Ritz Paris shimmered with elegance, every surface gleaming under the soft glow of chandeliers. The night was a celebration of compassion, where the wealthiest of Parisian society had gathered to support a cause far removed from their usual indulgences. Yet, amidst the sea of designer suits, sparkling gowns, and clinking champagne glasses, it was the simple warmth of Eliza that stood out like a beacon. Eliza was busy moving between tables, ensuring that every detail of the evening was running smoothly, her focus unwavering. The event was a reflection of her tireless dedication to those in need, and she was determined to make it a success. As the night unfolded, Eliza's eyes occasionally flickered to the entrance, wondering when Dylan Fairchild, the elusive millionaire whose name had become synonymous with generosity, would finally arrive. She had heard much about him, a man whose fortune rivaled kingdoms, yet who kept a low profile, shying away from the glamour of the social elite. His attendance at the gala was a significant gesture, a symbol of his commitment to the cause, but Eliza never expected to be personally moved by his presence. Dylan, however, had a different plan for the evening. He had never been one to relish grand social events, preferring the quiet of his private life. Something about this evening felt different. The cause that Eliza was so passionate about resonated with him, and for reasons he couldn't quite explain, he felt compelled to be there. As he entered the ballroom, he immediately spotted her, Eliza, the woman who had spent months organizing this very gala. She moved with purpose, her genuine smile and the effortless grace in her every step setting her apart from the others. There was something about her that made Dylan feel like he had stepped into a different world, one where kindness and sincerity were not commodities to be traded, but virtues to be celebrated. Eliza caught sight of Dylan, standing tall and regal, yet exuding an air of quiet vulnerability. She could see the loneliness behind his eyes, the guarded manner in which he interacted with the crowd. Despite the crowd's lavish attention, Dylan appeared lost in the chaos, as though searching for something more than the superficial interactions around him. Eliza, in her own quiet way, was drawn to him, sensing that there was more beneath the surface, a hidden depth she couldn't ignore. As fate would have it, their paths crossed by the grand staircase just moments later. Eliza, moving toward the center of the room, nearly bumped into Dylan as he stepped away from a group of guests. Their eyes met, and for a brief moment, the world around them seemed to fade into the background. Time slowed, and all that existed was the magnetic pull between them. Eliza's heart skipped a beat, and Dylan felt a rush of warmth he hadn't experienced in years. "I didn't mean to get in your way," Eliza said with a soft laugh, her voice warm and genuine. Dylan smiled, a rare and genuine expression that reached his eyes, lighting them up in a way Eliza hadn't expected. "No, you didn't. I'm just lost in thought," he replied, his voice low, as though sharing a secret. Eliza raised an eyebrow. "Lost in thought at a charity gala? I would have thought you'd be surrounded by people eager to talk to you." Dylan chuckled softly, his gaze lingering on her with a sincerity that disarmed him. "I prefer quieter places. Noise here? It's overwhelming." Eliza nodded understandingly, her heart warming at his candidness. "I know what you mean, but tonight, it's about the cause, not the noise. About making a difference, right? She said, her eyes sparkling with passion. Dylan looked at her for a moment, his gaze thoughtful. Yes, he said quietly, almost to himself. I suppose it is. There was something about Eliza's words, her unwavering dedication, that stirred something deep within him. As they continued to speak, Dylan found himself drawn to her more and more. There was an authenticity in Eliza that he hadn't seen in anyone for years. She didn't see him as the wealthy man who could make her dreams come true. She saw him as a person who was capable of making a real difference in the world. Tell me about your work, Dylan said, his voice soft with genuine curiosity. You seem like someone who doesn't do things for recognition. Eliza smiled, her eyes lighting up. I don't do it for recognition. I do it because I believe that everyone deserves a chance. Especially the homeless. Not just statistics, they're people. People with stories, dreams, and aspirations, just like you and me. Dylan was captivated by her words. Her passion was intoxicating, her heart as open as the sky. He could see the strength and determination in her, and for the first time in a long while, Dylan felt something stirring within him, a desire to be part of something greater than himself, something real. As the night wore on, Dylan found himself watching Eliza from across the room, his thoughts consumed by her. There was something so raw, so captivating about her. The more he learned about her, the more he wanted to be near her. Her dedication to the cause, her warmth, and the way she made everyone around her feel valued was a rarity in the world Dylan inhabited. A world of luxury and masks. Eventually their conversation ended, but as they said their goodbyes, Dylan took Eliza's hand, holding it gently. A silent promise passing between them. You're different, Eliza, Dylan said softly, his voice low and sincere. There's something about you that makes me want to be better, to do more. Eliza smiled, her heart fluttering in her chest. That's the power of kindness, Dylan. It has the ability to change us all. As their fingers parted, Eliza walked away, but she couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. Dylan Fairchild, the wealthy, reclusive millionaire, had already begun to change before her very eyes, all because of the power of her simple words. The night was far from over, but Eliza couldn't help but wonder if their paths were destined to cross again. And if so, what would it mean for both of them? The night had begun as a charity gala, but for Eliza and Dylan, it had already become the first step toward something deeper. A connection neither of them expected, but both would soon find impossible to ignore. As the days passed, following their first meeting, Dylan found himself attending more and more charity events. Not out of obligation, but because he couldn't stop thinking about Eliza. Each time the invitation came in, his heart would race, knowing that it meant he would see her again. At first, it felt like a natural extension of his philanthropic efforts, a way to show his support for causes he believed in. But as the weeks went by, Dylan realized the truth. He wasn't attending for the causes. He was attending for Eliza. There was something about her that kept drawing him in, something that stirred feelings in him he had long buried beneath layers of guarded walls. Eliza had a way of making everything feel real. Her sincerity was like a breath of fresh air, and every time their paths crossed, he found himself wanting to know more. Her smile, her passion, her heart for others, it all made him feel alive in a way that nothing had before. Eliza, too, found herself thinking about Dylan more than she had ever expected. She had seen him at the gala that night, aloof and reserved, but over the following months, something had shifted. She began to see a different side of him, one that was more vulnerable and real than the cold, distant millionaire she had imagined. Every time she spoke with him, she noticed the small acts of kindness, the way he listened intently, words filled with sincerity. Dylan didn't just throw his money at causes, he threw his heart into them, just like Eliza did, and that, to her, is the most beautiful thing about him. One evening, at yet another charity gala, Dylan found himself standing by the window, watching the sunset as a soft breeze blew through the room. He had arrived early, hoping to catch a moment alone before the event began. But what he really wanted was to see Eliza again. He didn't realize how much he had come to depend on her presence in his life until that very moment. As he stared out at the city, he heard her voice from behind him, and his heart skipped a beat. "Dylan," Eliza said, her voice soft but confident as she walked toward him. "You've been coming to more events lately? Are you trying to outdo me in charity work?" Dylan turned to her, smile tugging at the corners of his lips. "Maybe," he replied with a playful twinkle in his eyes. "But I must admit, I'm mostly here for the conversation with you. You make these events worth attending." Eliza's heart fluttered at his words, but she masked it with a teasing smile. "Well, Aren't you the charmer? But honestly, I'm glad you're here. You've been a huge help with everything. Your contributions are making a difference. Dylan stepped closer to her, his gaze never leaving hers. It's not just about the money, Eliza, he said quietly. It's about finding a reason to be a part of something that matters. And you make it all seem worth it. I see the way you pour your heart into this. It makes me want to be better. Eliza looked into his eyes, feeling the sincerity in his words wash over her like a wave. She had always believed in the power of kindness, but hearing Dylan speak so openly about his own journey, his desire to give more, filled her with a deep, undeniable affection for him. I don't know about you, Eliza said softly, her voice catching slightly, but I think kindness has the power to change people. It's changed you, Dylan. Not the same man I met at that gala anymore. Dylan felt a warmth spread through his chest at her words. She didn't know how much they meant to him. She didn't know how much she meant to him. I don't want to be the same, Dylan said, his voice low and earnest. I want to be someone who deserves to be loved for who I really am, not just for what I have. And somehow, you make that seem possible. Eliza's heart skipped a beat. She had always believed in the power of honesty and love. Standing there with Dylan, hearing him admit his fears and desires, she realized that maybe, just maybe, he was someone worth loving for exactly who he was. Dylan, she whispered, taking a step closer. You don't need to prove anything to me. I already see you, the real you. The air between them seemed to charge with an unspoken connection, as if the universe itself was urging them forward. Dylan reached out, gently taking Eliza's hand in his. There was something so tender in his touch, a silent promise of respect, admiration, and a love that was starting to take root. I don't know how to thank you, Dylan said softly, his voice full of emotion. You've shown me what real love looks like, Eliza. No, it's not about grand gestures or perfection. It's about being there, truly being there, for each other. You've taught me that. Eliza squeezed his hand, her heart swelling with emotion. Love isn't about perfection, Dylan. It's about understanding, about trusting each other to be who we really are. For a moment, they stood there, just the two of them, lost in the simplicity of their shared connection. The room around them faded into the background, and all that remained was the bond they had forged through trust, kindness, and the vulnerability that had come to define their relationship. In that moment, it was clear to both of them. This was more than just a fleeting attraction. This was the beginning of something real, something deep, something that would withstand the tests of time, built on a foundation of trust, respect, and the kind of love that only grows stronger with each passing day. I'm glad I met you, Eliza, Dylan whispered, his forehead gently resting against hers. I'm more than glad. And in that soft, intimate moment, the world seemed to fall away as they realized that they were no longer two strangers crossing paths by chance. They were two hearts, connected by something far more powerful than either had ever expected. Dylan had never felt more nervous in his life. The weight of the secret he had carried for so long felt unbearable now. Standing in front of Eliza, he could feel his pulse racing, his hands trembling slightly, as he tried to gather the courage to say the words that had haunted him for years. Eliza, who had always seen him as a man of compassion and strength, stood before him now, her eyes filled with warmth and trust. She had become everything he had been afraid of losing, someone who truly cared for him, not his wealth, not his status, but him. The thought of losing that, of betraying her trust, made him want to turn away and hide. He couldn't, not anymore. Eliza, I need to tell you something, Dylan began, his voice barely above a whisper. Something I should have told you a long time ago. Eliza's gaze softened. She had noticed something different about him lately, an unease that lingered in his eyes, unspoken tension whenever they were alone. She reached out, placing a gentle hand on his arm. Dylan, whatever it is, you know you can tell me. We've built something real here. I trust you. His heart ached at her words. Trust. She trusted him. But how could she, when he had built their entire relationship on a lie? I'm not paralyzed, Eliza, Dylan finally confessed, his voice cracking with the vulnerability he rarely allowed himself to show. I've been using this wheelchair as a shield. I know it's hard to understand, but I've been afraid. Afraid that if people knew the truth, they would only want me for my wealth. The wheelchair is my protection, my way of keeping people at a distance. Even you. Eliza's eyes widened, and for a moment she couldn't breathe. The room seemed to close in around her as the shock of his words settled in. She took a step back, her hand slowly falling away from his arm as the reality of what he had just confessed began to sink in. You? Eliza's voice faltered. "You've been lying to me this whole time?" Her words cut through him like a blade, and Dylan felt the full weight of his deception crashing down on him. "I never wanted to lie to you," Dylan said, his voice thick with emotion. "I never wanted to hurt you, but I was scared, Eliza. Scared that if you knew the truth, you would look at me differently. I didn't want you to see me as someone who was weak, someone who could be taken advantage of." Eliza felt a rush of anger and betrayal swell within her. How could he have done this? How could he have built their relationship on such a lie? All the moments they had shared, the love they had built, suddenly felt tainted, as though everything she had trusted had been ripped away from her. "Dylan, I don't even know who you are anymore," Eliza said, her voice trembling. "You made me believe you were someone you weren't. You made me fall for a man who was hiding behind a mask, and I trusted you. I loved you, but now I don't know what's real." Her words hit him like a slap, each syllable a painful reminder of what he had done. He could see the hurt in her eyes, the disbelief, and it shattered him. For all his efforts to protect himself, he had never anticipated the pain he would cause by keeping this secret from her. "I never wanted to hurt you, Eliza," Dylan whispered, his voice hoarse with regret. "I never wanted to make you feel like you couldn't trust me. But I understand if you need time. I understand if you need to walk away." Eliza closed her eyes, fighting back the tears that threatened to fall. She didn't know what to feel: anger, disappointment, betrayal, or the overwhelming love she still had for him. It was all so complicated. He had hurt her, but she could see the pain in his eyes too. She could see that he hadn't meant to deceive her. He had been driven by fear. Fear of rejection. Fear of being loved for the wrong reasons. For what felt like an eternity, Eliza stood there, her thoughts a whirlwind of emotions. Finally, she took a deep breath and opened her eyes. "I need time," she said, her voice steady, though her heart was breaking. "I need time to process this, Dylan. I need to understand why you did this." Dylan nodded, his heart sinking as he saw the pain in her eyes. "I'll give you all the time you need, but I will wait for you, Eliza. I will wait for you, because I know now that I want to be the man you thought I was, the man you deserve." With that, Eliza turned away, walking slowly toward the door, her heart heavy with the weight of the decision she now had to make. Dylan watched her go, feeling the distance between them stretch farther than he could have ever imagined. But deep down, he knew that this was the beginning of something new, a chance to rebuild their relationship from the ground up, based on the honesty and trust they had both been so afraid to embrace. And as Eliza stepped out into the cool night air, she whispered to herself, "Can love survive this? Can we rebuild what's been broken?" Only time would tell. The days that followed, Dylan's confession, were the hardest Eliza had ever experienced. The pain of betrayal was sharp, the weight of his lie pressing heavily on her chest. She had spent nights awake, questioning everything about their relationship, her mind replaying every conversation, every smile, every touch. It all seemed so real, yet now it felt tainted by his deception. She had been vulnerable, allowing herself to love him, trust him, only for that trust to be shattered by a secret he had kept hidden for so long. But as the days passed, Eliza realized that her anger was starting to fade. The pain remained, but the more she thought about Dylan's words, the fear he had described, the vulnerability that had driven him to protect himself, the more she understood. He had been afraid, not just of losing her, but of losing himself in a world where people only saw him for his wealth and not the man he truly was. Eliza had always believed that love was about understanding, about seeing beyond the surface. And now, as she reflected on everything Dylan had told her, she began to understand his fear. It wasn't about manipulating her. It wasn't about the money. It was about Dylan's own battle with his identity, his insecurities, and his desire to be loved for who he truly was. A man who wanted to be seen beyond the wheelchair, beyond the status, beyond the wealth. A man who was desperate to feel worthy of love in a world that so often wanted to take advantage of him. It was then that Eliza made the decision. She would forgive him. She would let go of the anger that had consumed her and choose to move forward with Dylan. Not because it was easy, but because she believed in him, in them. She had seen the man beneath the mask, the one who had been afraid to show his true self. Now she knew that he deserved the chance to be loved for exactly who he was, flaws and all. A week later, Eliza met Dylan at the park, the place where they had first talked, where everything had begun. The sun was setting, casting a warm, golden light over the quiet space, and Dylan was sitting on the same bench, his eyes distant, as if waiting for a sign, for her to come to him. He had been waiting for her forgiveness, but he had also been waiting for her to see him as the man he truly was. Not just a man in a wheelchair, not just a millionaire, but a man who had made mistakes and who wanted nothing more than to build something real with her. Eliza walked up to him, her steps slow and deliberate. She could feel her heart pounding in her chest, but there was a calmness inside her too. She had made her decision, and now, as she stood before him, she felt more certain than ever. "Dylan," she said softly, her voice steady but full of emotion. "I've thought about everything you said, and I want you to know that I understand now. I understand your fear, and I understand why you did what you did. But trust, Dylan. Trust is the foundation of love. I've always believed in that. I just need to know that we're moving forward together. Not because we have to, but because we want to." Dylan looked up at her, his eyes filled with a mix of hope and desperation. "Liza, I never meant to hurt you. I've hurt myself more than I can say, trying to protect myself from a world that wants to take everything from me. But in doing that, I've pushed away the one person who truly sees me, the one person who I want to build a life with." Liza knelt down in front of him, her hands gently resting on his. "Then let's rebuild it together," she said, her voice breaking with emotion. "Let's rebuild what we have, this time with honesty, with trust, and with the understanding that we're both imperfect. We don't need to hide from each other anymore." Dylan felt the knot in his chest loosen, the weight he hadn't realized he was carrying slipping away. "Liza, I swear to you, from this moment on, I will be the man you deserve. No more walls, no more secrets, just us, together." And in that moment, Eliza smiled, tears welling in her eyes. "I believe you," she whispered, her voice filled with love and relief. "I'm ready to move forward. Let's not let fear control us anymore. Let's live a life of simplicity, a life where we help others, just like we've always wanted to." Dylan's heart swelled with emotion as he took her hands in his, the realization that they were in this together settling in. "A life of simplicity and charity," he repeated, his voice full of conviction. "A life that's real, a life that matters." Together they stood up, hand in hand, looking out at the sunset. The world around them seemed to fade away as they made a silent promise to each other, to never let fear stand in the way of their love again. Their journey had only just begun. With trust, understanding, and a shared commitment to living a life of kindness, they knew they could overcome anything. And as they walked side by side, they knew that no matter what the future held, they were stronger than ever before, because their love had been tested and they had passed together. The Parisian countryside had always been a dream, a place of simplicity, where the world seemed to slow down and life could be lived in its purest form. For Dylan and Eliza, it was the perfect escape from the chaos of their former lives. They had moved into a small, charming cottage on the outskirts of Paris, nestled among the rolling hills and vibrant fields of lavender. The air was fresh, the mornings peaceful, and the view from their front porch was breathtaking. This was where they would raise their family, where their love story would continue to unfold, far from the noise and distractions that had once defined their lives. It had been a few years since the day Eliza forgave Dylan, since the weight of his secret had been lifted and their relationship had been rebuilt on a foundation of trust, honesty, and mutual respect. In those years, their love had only deepened. The wounds of the past had healed, and now, as they watched their children play in the yard, they both knew that the pain had been worth it. They had come through the storm stronger, more united than ever. Their children, a boy and a girl, were their pride and joy. Ethan, their lively 7-year-old son, had inherited Dylan's quiet determination and Eliza's unyielding kindness. Lily, their 5-year-old daughter, was as gentle as a breeze, with a heart as big as her mother's. Every day, as they watched them grow, Eliza and Dylan marveled at the life they had built together. Their children were a reflection of their love, a love that had been forged through adversity, a love that was now rooted in the simplest, most beautiful parts of life. One evening, as the sun began to set behind the hills, Eliza and Dylan sat together on the porch, watching their children chase each other around the garden. The sky was painted with hues of pink and orange, and the world felt peaceful, perfect even. Eliza rested her head on Dylan's shoulder, her fingers intertwining with his. "I never imagined this," Eliza whispered, her voice soft but filled with emotion. "I never thought we would have a life like this. It's more than I could have ever hoped for." Dylan turned to her, his heart swelling with love for the woman who had been his rock, his heart. "It's everything I ever dreamed of, too. I've had everything I could possibly want, Eliza, except for you. You gave me the courage to be the man I was always meant to be. I didn't know what real love was until you showed me." Eliza smiled, her eyes glistening with tears. "We built this together, Dylan. This life, this love. It's all because we chose to be honest with each other, to forgive, and to never give up on us." Dylan gently cupped her face, his thumb brushing away a stray tear. "I'll never give up on you. Never again. You and our children are the greatest gifts I've ever received, and I'll spend the rest of my life making sure you always feel loved and cherished." Their lips met in a soft kiss, a kiss that spoke of everything they had been through and everything they had become. In that moment, they didn't need words, just the connection they shared, the bond that had carried them through the hardest times. As the days passed, their charity work continued, but it had changed. What once felt like a way to fill the emptiness of their lives now felt like a natural extension of their love for each other and for the world. Eliza still organized events, working tirelessly to raise funds and awareness for the homeless. But now, it wasn't just a cause. It was a legacy they were building for their children. They wanted Ethan and Lily to grow up knowing the importance of kindness, of giving back, of helping others. It was a lesson they had both learned the hard way, and they would make sure their children never had to learn it in the same way. One afternoon, as they all gathered around the dinner table, Dylan leaned forward, looking at Eliza with admiration. "You know, every day with you is like a dream," said, his voice filled with sincerity. "You've shown me what it means to live with purpose, to love with everything we have, and for that, I'll always be grateful." Eliza smiled, her heart full as she looked at their children, at Dylan, at the life they had created. "We've created something beautiful, haven't we?" she said, her voice thick with emotion. "And it's only the beginning." The family sat together, enjoying the warmth of each other's company, the laughter of their children echoing in the background. Their life was not without challenges, but it was one built on love, respect, and the knowledge that they had overcome so much together. And as the stars began to twinkle above them that night, Eliza and Dylan knew they had found something far more precious than anything they could have ever imagined. A love that was enduring, a love that was real, and a life that was more than they had ever dreamed possible. Together, they had created a family, a legacy, and a future that was full of hope, compassion, and above all, love. True love is not something that can be defined by grand gestures, material possessions, or fleeting moments of passion. It's a force that transcends circumstances, a powerful connection that binds two people together despite the challenges they face. It's built on a foundation of honesty, trust, and mutual respect, qualities that allow love to thrive even in the most difficult of times. As we look at the journey of Dylan and Eliza, we see the power of love in its purest form. Their love was not easy. It was tested, it was tried, and it was torn apart by the weight of secrets and betrayal. But despite it all, their love endured. Why? Because they chose to forgive. They chose to heal together, to build something stronger than what they had before. They chose to embrace the flaws, fears, and the imperfections that made them human. Dylan's secret, the lie he had kept for so long, could have destroyed everything between them. It could have torn apart the trust they had built, leaving them both shattered. Instead of letting it break them, Eliza chose to understand. She chose to see Dylan for who he truly was, the man behind the mask, the one who had been afraid to show himself. She saw his fear, his vulnerability, and she loved him even more for it. And Dylan? He chose to be honest. He chose to lay bare his soul, to reveal the truth he had hidden for so long, even at the risk of losing the one person he cared about most. He chose to trust Eliza with the deepest parts of himself, knowing that only through honesty could their love survive. Together, they rebuilt their relationship from the ground up. It wasn't easy. It took time, patience, and a willingness to forgive. But in doing so, they discovered something beautiful. Love isn't perfect. It isn't flawless. It is raw. It is messy. And it is filled with moments of doubt and fear. But it is also the most powerful force in the world. True love doesn't just survive adversity. It thrives in it. It's the quiet moments when you choose to stay when everything else tells you to walk away. It's the strength to forgive, even when you've been hurt. It's the courage to trust, even when you've been betrayed. It's the willingness to fight for someone, not because you have to, but because you choose to. Through their story, we learn that love is not about perfection. It's about acceptance, about seeing the other person for who they truly are, flaws and all, and loving them despite it. It's about vulnerability, about letting down your guard and allowing someone else into your heart. It's about trust, about knowing that even in the hardest moments, the bond you share is unbreakable. But most importantly, we learn that love is about forgiveness. It's about letting go of the pain and resentment that can so easily destroy a relationship. Eliza's forgiveness of Dylan wasn't just an act of mercy. It was an act of love. It was her way of saying, I see you, I see the real you, and I choose to love you anyway. And in doing so, she gave him the greatest gift he could have ever received, the opportunity to be his true self. Without fear, without shame. Their journey was one of healing, of learning how to trust again, and of understanding that love isn't just about the good times. It's about the hard times too. Moments when you think you can't go on, but you choose to keep fighting. It's about looking at the person beside you and knowing that, despite everything, you're willing to walk through the storm together. Their love story teaches us that true love doesn't give up. It doesn't walk away when things get tough. It stays. It fights. It believes in the power of forgiveness and the strength of trust. And it doesn't matter how many mistakes have been made or how many wounds have been inflicted. True love finds a way to heal, to grow, and to become even stronger. Dylan and Eliza's story is a reminder that love isn't just something you feel. It's something you choose. It's something you work for. It's something you nurture, even when it feels impossible. It's about being there for each other when no one else is. About lifting each other up when the world tries to tear you down. It's about standing by each other's side, no matter the obstacles, and saying, we are in this together. Now, as we come to the end of their story, we invite you, the viewer, to reflect on your own understanding of love. What does love mean to you? Is it something that can withstand the trials of life? Is it something that can heal even the deepest wounds? We encourage you to share your thoughts, your experiences, and your beliefs about love in the comments below. How have you experienced the power of love, honesty, and trust in your own life? What challenges have you faced? And how has love helped you overcome them? If you've been inspired by Dylan and Eliza's story, we ask you to like and share this video. Let their message of forgiveness, redemption, and the power of love reach as many hearts as possible. Because in a world that often feels divided, we need reminders like this, that love is powerful, that love is real, and that love is the answer to all things.